You wake up in New York at 9 a.m. and you just found out there was a major networking event in London in 5 hours. Imagine if you could hop on a plane at noon and make it there on time.
We're landing in about 1 minute. Thank you.
That would be impossible right now by plane, but not by rocket. Elon Musk's greatest ambition is to use Starship to build a city on Mars, which I talked about in the previous video, and while working on that plan, he thought about another use for the spacecraft.
Maybe there is some market for really fast transport of stuff around the world.
That was Musk in 2016, and the market has now expanded to moving not just cargo, but crew.
If you build a ship that's capable of going to Mars, well, what if you take that same ship and go from one place to another on Earth?
SpaceX wants to take people from place to place on the planet, making most long-distance trips in less than 30 minutes and going anywhere around the world in under an hour. While passenger planes travel up to 575 miles per hour, Starship will go nearly 17,000 miles per hour, and instead of flying above the clouds, it'll fly above the Earth.
The great thing about going to space is there's no friction, so once you're out of the atmosphere, it will be smooth as silk, no turbulence, nothing.
But that doesn't necessarily mean your ride will be very comfortable. It will feel sort of like Disney's Space Mountain roller coaster, which means you'll need some sort of restraint mechanism, and if you feel a little queasy, there won't be any toilets or other amenities like a kitchen galley. In order for Starship to carry a lot more people, if it were making a trip to Mars, they would have to be cabins and common areas because it would take months to get there, and that would limit the number of passengers to 100, whereas Earth-to-Earth travel allows Starship to hold 1,000 passengers in order to board the spacecraft. You would need to take a boat to the site of the rocket launch, which is on a floating platform called a spaceport. After going beyond Earth, it re-enters the atmosphere and arrives at a floating spaceport in another city. Since Starship is fully reusable, the price of a ticket will be drastically reduced, but that doesn't mean it will be cheap. We don't yet know how much a trip will cost, but a CNBC reporter quoted SpaceX's president and CEO Gwynne Shotwell, saying at an event in 2019 that it will be cheaper than a first-class ticket, but a little more than economy. Shotwell has also said previously that it would be less than a business class. So it's still unclear what the price will be, but here's an example of round-trip plane tickets from London Heathrow Airport to New York JFK about a month from now. An average economy ticket is around $400 for business class. It's $4,000 for first class, about $5,000 besides the price. There is another big consideration SpaceX will need to address. Rockets are really noisy. That's the sound of one Raptor engine that powers Starship. There are currently 31 of these planned for the Super Heavy booster, which lifts Starship into orbit, while another 6 are located on Starship itself. However, Musk has said Starship could actually make trips under 6,200 miles without the need for the booster, and instead the spacecraft would fly with an additional 2 to 4 engines, but because it would still have an impact on residents, the spaceport will be located 20 miles offshore, which means getting there could take more time than the actual flight. As a comparison, the journey from New York Grand Central Terminal to JFK Airport is about 14 miles. Musk has suggested a Hyperloop transit system traveling hundreds of miles per hour could ferry people to the spaceports really quickly. And while SpaceX works at all its plans, the airline industry is also trying to cut down on travel time. Supersonic planes, which travel faster than the speed of sound, could be returning. The Concorde stopped flying in 2003 following spiraling maintenance costs. A company called Boom Supersonic is now developing the Overture, which would cut flight times by plane in half. So a trip from New York to London would be 3 hours and 15 minutes. It would be the price of a business class ticket, and the aim is to have commercial flights. By 2030 it's unclear if SpaceX is Earth-to-Earth. Plans will be scaled up to take off before then. But Musk says test flights could start as early as 2022 or 2023, and eventually it will be real. When it is, it could change how we live and even where we live. Although we might have to wait a while, the future of air travel could be in space. Thanks so much for watching. We are GAF.TV.